Even though I walk through the darkest valley, you are with me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. I was preparing a very different kind of table yesterday. I was at a baby shower for one of my friends, and I was kind of the co-host, bringing things and coming early to help set up, and the host knew that I'm a pastor. So as we were setting up, she told me all about her church and the Bible study she's in and the prayer team trip she's about to take and the kids club volunteering that she does. This is a thing that sometimes happens when strangers who are churchy know you're a pastor, okay? They kind of list out all of the good Christian things that they're doing, I think as just a way to connect. And I don't doubt she is a good Christian person, and her list was very impressive. And so I listened and affirmed and tried to keep it light as we set out cupcakes and moved furniture around. And then she asked me, Natalie, as a pastor, what is weighing you down or making your heart heavy? She was not going to let me keep it light. So I took a deep breath and I thought a minute, and I said something like, well, it feels really heavy trying to find the good news for my people again and again each week in a world that is burning, literally and metaphorically. She kind of looked confused. So I added, like, you know how humanity is actively destroying the earth and each other. She kind of paused and blinked and said something like, but honestly, it makes me more excited because it means Jesus is coming back soon. Like, in the next 5 or 10 years, he'll come back and it won't be like this anymore. My turn to pause and blink. And thank God that I could hear the guest of honor coming in the door and could shift the conversation to how cute her belly is and what the baby's name is going to be. The season of Lent is for all those times when it feels heavy, maybe even impossible to find the good news, when you're sick with grief or wandering and feeling lost or feeling helpless in the face of war and misinformation and pressures of all kinds. I know you know what I'm talking about. The season of Lent is 40 days, inspired by Jesus' 40 days of fasting in the wilderness that Marissa read about earlier. It's a season of reflection, confession, brutal honesty about our weaknesses, our complicity, facing off with temptation. 40 days from Ash Wednesday to Holy Saturday, Lent reminds us to take our time with this part of ourselves. We don't have to rush to salvation. For 40 days, we wander in the wilderness with Jesus. When he asks us what makes our hearts heavy, he listens, he holds us, and he says, me too. We begin the season each year on Ash Wednesday as we draw our ash crosses on each other and remember how fragile we really are, how our bodies are made up of the earth and will one day return to the earth. We follow Jesus' footsteps from there into the wilderness, where he renounces the temptation to turn stones into bread to feed himself, right? And we too are invited to renounce the temptations of the world that don't truly satisfy. Maybe you've done this by fasting from a particular food or from some kind of entertainment. Maybe we need to fast from the need to be right at all costs or from self-criticism. Jesus renounces the temptation next to protect himself from the world. When the devil takes him on top of the temple, as the story goes, he refuses to jump and call angels down to save him. And in Lent, we too practice renouncing the temptation to check out of the suffering and limitations of our world. We refuse to look away from the real pain around us and within us, and instead we practice being present to it. Jesus renounces the temptation to assert power and dominance at any cost. The devil shows him the kingdoms of the world and says, these are all yours, right? Just get on my team. And Jesus could have said, you know, the end justifies the means, right? We kind of are tempted to want him to say that. Oh, this power won't corrupt me, right? But no, Jesus said, that isn't even true power. And in Lent, we join him, renouncing the temptation to control, to dominate, to do even good by means of violence. We inhabit this wilderness wandering with Jesus, where we come face to face with our demons, with the evil of our world, with the temptations to satisfy ourselves, to protect ourselves, to gain power over others at any cost. And in that wilderness, we don't always have answers. We don't always have a vision of what the future can be. We are wanderers. And this space, it may just be 40 days a year in the church calendar, but this is a space where a lot of us spend a lot of our lives, right? And if that's where you are today, beloved, I want you to know you're not doing it wrong. You're in the company of Jesus. The divine is there with you, alongside you, providing for you in ways that you might not even be able to see. As we follow the trajectory of Lent into Holy Week, right, that last week of Lent, from our bird's eye view in this series, we watch as Jesus not only renounces those temptations of evil, but turns them totally on their heads. On Palm Sunday, Jesus shows the world what true power actually looks like. Not domination of kingdoms, but a movement of those who've been oppressed, that the world sees as weak. He rides into the capital city to shouts of Hosanna from poor folks, from women, from disabled folks, from country folks. And a few days later, on Maundy Thursday, Jesus shows his followers what true sustenance looks like. Not rocks turned into bread. He proclaims his own body is the bread. His own body and blood is the nourishment for the world. On Good Friday, Jesus once again refuses to call down angels for his salvation, but goes all the way down into the depths of humanity's suffering. Wrongfully accused, misunderstood, publicly humiliated, lynched on the side of the road. Lent ends with silence, hopelessness, confusion, death. And every bit of it is sacred. Every bit of your life, beloveds, is sacred. Every heavy heart in this room is sacred. Every heavy heart in Palestine and in Israel is sacred. Jesus calls us not to escape from the world's pain, but to connect to each other through it. This is part of what makes us human. To find our common humanity so that we can renounce the lies that are so tempting to believe, the lies that domination will bring peace, that if we're on the right side, anything is justifiable, that as long as our needs are met, the rest of the world can go to hell. Lies. So, what is the good news for today? If your heart is heavy with the weight of the world, like mine is, I'm sorry to tell you, but the good news is heavy too. In the Lenten moments of our life, the good news is not that Jesus is coming back in a few years, so not to worry, right? That's the kind of thinking Jesus rejects. The good news is not that there's a clear escape path, right, for you or for others who are suffering. The good news is that Jesus is right there in the wilderness with us. The good news is that God is here, as close as our next breath, in all of our breaths, our first and our last. The good news is that the world is brimming with that divine love. That divine presence is braided in and through our grief through all the most painful parts of our life and all the most shattered parts of our world. The good news is that even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. You prepare a table before me, not in the afterlife, not when things are better, not if I have enough faith. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies, right? In the presence of the wilderness. Beloveds, if your heart is heavy today, you are not alone. God has prepared a table for you right where you are. No rescue required. In the darkest valley, God is with you. When you feel alone, God offers sustenance. In a world of division and war, God sets one table and invites enemies to come and eat together. May we join at that table of peace today. Amen.